Hello everyone, it's Menenberg. In this video, I'm going to break down the LEQ, the long essay question. For those of you who don't know, this is 15% of your overall AP score. It's not unimportant, so pay attention. In previous videos, we've looked at the SAQ, we've talked about the AP themes, the historical thinking skills. I encourage you to check it all out. It's going to come into play a little bit here with the LEQ as well. So let's first review the AP exam structure as a whole. Look, you got the multiple choice section, 55 questions, 55 minutes. SAQ section, short answers, 3 questions, 40 minutes, 20% of your overall grade, followed by the writing portion. All right, you have a free response question that's a DBQ, or document-based question, and you have an LEQ, a long essay question. That's the one we're focusing on here, but understand that this section here is not broken up for you. You have what they suggest as 40 minutes to write your LEQ. That is taking place probably after you write your DBQ, so it's the last thing you were going to write. It's really important that you pay attention to the clock because no one's going to tell you time to start writing. You got to figure it out on your own. Now, in addition to that, you got to spend some time and factor in a couple minutes here and there to break down prompts. That's what we're going to talk about here. I am suggesting 3 to 5 minutes of breaking down the prompts. And when I say prompts, because they give you one required DBQ prompt that you got to answer, and then they give you 3 LEQ prompts from different time periods. Okay, so that's 3 choices you have to make. And before you figure out which one you want to do, just let me say this. There's no bonus points for picking the supposedly hardest prompt. Nothing like that at all. In fact, my recommendation would be to always pick the one you know the most about. Well, how do you know which one you know the most about? You're going to break down the prompts. Okay, that's why you spend 3 to 5 minutes unpacking the prompt and outlining your essay. If you get through an outline and realize, I got nothing on this, maybe move on to the next one. Okay, answer with the one you know the most about and can argue the most about. Okay? And then after that, spend about 5 minutes writing your thesis for your essay. I say 5 minutes because that's going to leave you approximately 30 minutes to write the rest of your essay, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it's actually going to be enough, and I'll show you how. All right, first a couple basic tips and reminders for this essay. First, look, grammar doesn't count. This hurts my soul because I'm also an English teacher, but you can misspell everything. As long as they know what you're talking about, you can't misspell completely and they don't know that you're talking about, I don't know, King Leopold. They think you're talking about Napoleon. Those are different people. Okay, so you got to get close enough that they can identify what you're talking about, but spelling and grammar doesn't count. Style doesn't count. The only thing that counts as far as your writing is, can they follow your argument? Can they see what you're trying to say? If they can't, good luck. All right? The only other thing that kind of comes into play with the structure is the thesis. In later videos, we're going to go into a lot more depth on thesis, but for now, let me just say this. Put it at the front, put it at the end of your essay. First and last paragraph. You don't have to put it in both places, but that's the only places they're looking for it, so it's probably a good idea to put it both places. All right? All right. It should be 2 or more, or 1 or 2 continuous sentences. It doesn't have to be 2 sentences, but they need to be together. And what I mean by that is you can't spread it out over like a long paragraph because it's a little too hard for them to follow what you're trying to say, and you don't want them to have to figure it out. Spell it out for them. Remember, no style points. Get to the point, make it clear, make it simple. All right, moving on. Breaking down the prompt. This is a very important part of this because look, I've read so many essays over the years, and so many of them are just really, really good essays that I have to give zeros to. And the reason I have to give them zeros is because they don't do what was asked of them. They give me a bunch of great information about something that I didn't ask them for, all right? You got to think about this. If you are asked to give a recipe for, I don't know, Thanksgiving turkey, and instead you come up with the recipe for an Oreo milkshake. Those are not the same things. The Oreo milkshake tastes fantastic. Thank you for giving it to me. I really enjoy this, but that's not what I asked for. It's the same idea. I can't give you points for that, people, because you didn't answer with what I asked. Okay, so you've got to understand and break down the prompt. So let's just try one here. This is about China. It says, because of its size, wealth, and cultural innovations, China had a significant influence on its East Asian neighbors in the years 1200 to 1450 CE. Okay? Develop an argument that evaluates the extent to which Chinese cultural traditions led to change in other East Asian societies in that time period. Great. All right, let's look at what it is. I made it really small so you can easily read it. And then I want to do a couple things. First, what do we need to address? What do we need to address in this prompt? In this prompt, we see the words, the extent to which Chinese cultural traditions led to change. So we're going to get to led to change in a minute, but the extent to which is going to show up in most AP World, AP Euro, AP US prompts. That phrase is important to understand, and we're going to come back to that as well. The other thing we got to think about is East Asian societies. Okay, it's not South Asian societies, it's not East African societies, it's East Asian societies. The reason I bring up the plural as well is because while it doesn't matter how your grammar looks on this, it does matter how well you read grammar. Because if you miss that S and only talk about Japan instead of including, I don't know, Korea or Vietnam, then you're not adequately answering the prompt. So pay attention to grammar. If they say societies, it's going to mean some stuff to you, all right? Next, what are some examples of Chinese cultural traditions? This is important because if you don't have any examples in your mind as you're breaking down this prompt, you need to move on to another prompt. You don't know anything. You don't know enough. Go to the next prompt. Chinese cultural traditions, a couple examples, Confucianism, Buddhism, woodblock printing, writing style or system, architectural style. There's other things, but these are just a few that might come to mind that you might write about. You don't have to write about all of them. But if you can't rattle off 3 or 4 things real quick, move on. Next prompt. Okay, what geographical region is this in? East Asia. Important. Now, we don't spend a lot of time on this, but you really need to be familiar with those AP regions. There's maps on the College Board website that tell you what they are. We should be giving that to you. You should have it. But you need to review it because if you rattle off some stuff about India, which is South Asia, that doesn't work. That's wrong because it's the wrong region. It's not what the prompt asked you. Okay? In addition to that time period, I've had students talk about the Mongols, for example, in a prompt that took place much later than the Mongol Empire existed. And it's not to say that you can't include information about South Asia or the Mongols in the wrong time period. It's that your focus of the essay needs to live within that realm. It needs to stay in that lane. Because they've given you those parameters so that your essay remains focused and demands certain historical knowledge that you have studied and worked to get. All right? Don't just give us a bunch of general stuff. Stay in that area. Pay attention to those clues because they tell you what you need to write about. Okay? What East Asian societies were influenced by China? Again, I got to bring up that plural piece because if I only know of one, that's not enough. Again, you got to write at least 2, maybe 3. I wouldn't suggest 3 because you probably don't have time to do that adequately, but you got to get at least 2. Okay? And if you don't have them, next prompt. All right. Let's break down the prompt a little further. What does the extent to which mean? This shows up all the time. It basically is asking you, how much did something happen? How much? Good, bad? Was it positive, negative, long-lasting, short-lasting, significant, insignificant? How would you describe how much Chinese culture influenced these other places? Okay? That's what it's asking. If you can't reword the prompt in your own words, at least in your mind, it's going to be hard to know what it's asking. Next. What historical thinking skill lends itself best to this prompt? Look for clues. So phrases like led to, you should automatically know that is causation. That's cause and effect, right? Led to is cause. Chinese culture caused these effects in these East Asian societies. We got to know which ones they are. In addition, when I say societies, you inherently are going to be comparing more than one place. If it was just one place, you're just talking about that place and making some kind of argument. In this case, you have multiple areas, and it's not going to be an identical influence. So there's going to be some implicit comparison going on. Now, I would be explicit in my argumentation with that comparison, but just understand that in the back of your mind, this prompt lends itself best to causation and comparison. You might try a CCOT in this, and again, I talk about these in other videos, these thinking skills, so review those on your own time. But for now, understand that while you don't have to do both, you're probably going to have elements of each of them within that structure of your essay. Lastly, what AP themes seem to fit? Cultural traditions. Surprise equals culture. Now, it sounds obvious, but listen, I know you know a lot about the political structure of China during this time, but unfortunately, that's not what they're asking. So if you talk about the bureaucracy, Fine, we're really impressed. But the truth is, that's not a cultural tradition necessarily. That's not what they're looking at when they organize these themes. That's why we spend time on themes. That's why I made a video on themes. Watch the video, people. Seriously, you gotta understand what they're getting at. And they used to tell you what theme you're aiming for. They don't do that anymore, but they do give you these clue words. So that's why you need to be very familiar, and that needs to not catch you off guard. Write about what you're supposed to write about, and you're gonna be just fine. Okay. Next time, we're going to talk a little bit more about outlining that essay. This is a step that most people don't do, and I want to give you just a few tips on how you can successfully outline that essay. Keep in mind, this is not part that's graded, but it's a great habit to get into early so that your LEQ can be better than everyone else's. All right, people, stay tuned for next one. Until then, remember that life is about choices, my friends. We'll see you then.